One last thing I want to touch on before we get into outlining is maybe you're saying, okay, Michael, I've answered all my questions to my idea, but I still don't believe my idea is expanded enough. Maybe you think that there's not enough information here that I've come up with, and I don't know where this story's going. I need more help, right? Here are some questions that you can ask yourself. There's 8 of them here that I came up with for you, and hopefully these will help you. So the first one is, who is the protagonist? So we already talked about your hero character, but who really is he? Talk about everything you can think about. Maybe do a character sketch on, describing his background, describing his attributes and his positive traits, his negative traits. What are the inner conflicts he has? What are the exterior conflicts he has? What are his motives? What are his hobbies in life? What are things that he struggles with? Who are his friends? Stuff like that. So think about who is this protagonist in this story and try to expand that out. Even if you just jot down a few different lines about him to get an understanding of who he is. Something that helps me sometimes is looking up stock photos of people and trying to find an image that fits my protagonist to help me get an idea of what he looks like. And, maybe I find a picture of someone carrying a leather bag and it makes me think, oh, maybe my protagonist should have a leather bag on him all the time. And in this leather bag, he is always carrying books because he loves to read. And now I'm coming up with different hobbies and stuff for my character, and I'm evolving who this character is. So try to think about who really is your protagonist. The next thing is, who is the antagonist? And sometimes the antagonist and the villain in your story are 2 separate people, but for this instance, let's just say they are the same person. Your antagonist is the villain in the story or the bad guy of your story. And ask yourself, who really is this antagonist? Where did he come from? How did he become the antagonist? Why does he think he's doing what is right? People don't just do evil because they want to hate everyone. For the most part, they usually don't. Usually people are hating on other people because they think they're doing something right. They think they're providing justice or making a new world that is better. They're creating conflict that is necessary for their end goal. Whatever it is, explain out who your antagonist is. Next question is, who are the side characters? Maybe you're having a hard time talking about who your hero is. A great way you can find out who your hero is talking about who his side characters are, because some really good advice I heard is you are most likely to take attributes from the 5 people that you are closest with, you are most like. And that is so helpful in storytelling, because if you can list out a few characters that your main character is friends with, there's probably things that your main character likes about that person, whether it's the way they dress or the way they carry themselves. They have a certain vibe to them that they like, or perhaps it's the advice they give. And this can help explain who your character is. If your character seeks advice from this friend, it probably means they're ignorant in that aspect or seeking to learn in that way. Perhaps if your character likes the vibe or the attire that your one side character has, then perhaps your main character struggles with their identity and struggles with what they look like, and they're nervous about looking the right way and being a certain type of cool or something like that. Perhaps some of your side characters are kind of antagonistic type of characters. Maybe there's a bully, which can help understand who your protagonist is more. If your protagonist has a bully in his life, then it's likely that he's probably not big, buff, and strong, and he's likely someone who's easily picked on. So think about who are your side characters and try to answer those questions, because if you can explain out who your side characters are, it can make it a lot easier to understand who your main character is. Another question you can ask yourself is, how does the story begin? If you are finding it hard to come up with your story idea and expand on it, maybe try to write your intro scene. Or if you don't want to write your intro scene, just write down some notes on what you want to happen or where you want it to take place. Think about who's there at this intro scene and why does it start here, and what is the goal of this intro scene? How are you going to hook your reader into this scene? Is there something that takes place? Even if it's not 100% connected to your plot, but it's just a little side story to kind of hook your reader and reel them in, then what is going to happen there? So think about what your story's beginning is. Or if you don't want to think about the intro scene, think about the intro location. Think about, where do you want the story to begin, both emotionally and physically? What are different aspects that will cover the introduction of your story? The next question is, how does the story end? Think about, where do you want your story to go? Where do you want your end character to end up at? Do you want him to reach his goal and go beyond? Do you want him to find a new goal and have a new resolution in the end? Do you want him to learn something? Do you want him to have a new enemy? Do you want this to be a cliffhanger? Do you want it to be a sound ending to the story? Whatever it is, think about what is the ending that I have in mind. Another thing you can ask yourself are, what are some specific scenes you have in mind? Do you have a dragon fight scene? Do you have a scene where the two lovers have an argument and there's a big fight and they're throwing things at each other before one of them storms out? Do you have a big scene where this character is missing his deadline and everything hangs on him reaching this deadline and he's about to miss it? Do you have a twist in your story where the cop is about to arrest a bad guy and then an explosion goes off and the guy escapes, or something like that? Think about what are some different scene ideas you have, because if you could think of some different random exciting scenes that you have, it might help you pull together some other scenes and really expand on your idea. Next, you want to think about what is the setting of your story. If this is something that isn't easily understood for you, or you don't know exactly where you want your story to take place, if it can take place in multiple places, think about how you can describe this setting, whether it's something that takes place in medieval times, whether it's modern times, whether it's something that takes place in Egypt or London or France or New York or wherever. Maybe it takes place in a swamp, maybe it takes place in Antarctica. Think about what are the things that are in this setting, the environment. Are there any natural disasters that happen here? Is it always hot? Is it always cold? What kind of people live in this environment? How do they dress? What kind of occupations do they hold? Think of all these things that can answer what this setting is like, so you can help build out this world in your mind and help create this story. And then lastly, what makes your story unique? What sets your story apart? You might have pulled some elements from this story or that story, or just came up with something on the fly like I did when I was showing you how to write the premise and the idea and whatnot. But when it comes down to it, you need to have something that makes your story set apart. Whether it's your character is unique, or the location is unique, or the obstacles that he faces are unique, whatever it is, you need to have some things that set your story apart, things that are different, things that are interesting, things that make your story seem compelling to your reader. A lot of times, things that make it interesting are adding twists that seem impossible to overcome, adding obstacles that are hard to overcome, or adding character types that are unlikely to fit the role that is the hero in the end of the story. If you look at a movie like Ride Along, this main character is a teacher, a coward that has to go on a ride along with this cop, and he's not fitting to go on this adventure with this cop. He's not fitting for that. If you look at a story like Shrek, he is an unlikely hero. This ugly ogre is going to go on this quest and save the princess. If you look at a movie like Star Wars, if you look at Luke Skywalker, he is not a trained warrior. He has to learn along the way to be able to overcome the obstacles in the end. Different twists are like the bad guy is his father, having a relational twist in there. So think about different things that you can add a twist in your story and make it come to life, make it seem unique, make it your story and make it your own.